Hello, my name is Jeremy Griffin. I'm the Executive Director of the New York City Hemophilia Chapter, and I want to welcome you to our new Pathways to Physical and Emotional Well-Being video series. This is an 8-part video series designed specifically for people living with bleeding disorders here in the New York City metro area. This video series aims to create a conversation around both mental and physical well-being, looking at the intersections of where these things can have a cross section in your life. Each episode is packed with expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you navigate your unique journey to wellness. Let me share with you a couple of the topics we'll be covering during these episodes. Episode 1 covers living an aligned life. Episode 2 is about living your life vision. Episode 3 is about navigating change, simple actions that you can take, and mindset tools through transition. Episode 4 is about staying on track, how to self-coach yourself through anxiety and fear. Episode 5 is about preventing and recovering from injuries. Episode 6, building a supportive routine for success. And episode 7, finding wellness and mindfulness as it comes with meditation and where you fit in with that. In episode 8, we'll talk to a group of teens where they will share their advice on staying mentally and physically fit. So I hope you'll join us through this journey. We've had some wonderful supporters to make this possible. Big thank you to HFA, CVS, and one of our presenting sponsors, Pfizer. In fact, before we get started on this episode, I want to just share with you a quick message from Pfizer to tell you a little bit about the work they're doing in the community. Here, watch this. Well, that was great. Well, welcome to episode 1. This is the episode on living an aligned life. You know, finding meaning and purpose through values. Some of the things you'll learn in this is really about how you can set up your own values to live a more harmonious existence. And also, probably the most important thing I learned through this session was how do you increase joy and maybe decrease some of the stress in your life. Attached, you'll find a download link to a values workbook that will help you kind of identify which values work for you. And then also there's a really good resource that was brought to you by Pfizer called Understanding Emotional Wellness as a Mature Adult Living with a Bleeding Disorder. It really gives a wonderful overview of what specifically wellness is for people living with a bleeding disorder. So check that out too. All right, without further ado, here's the video.
Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I am Bree. I am a neuroscience based life coach and money coach, my friends. And today we are going to be focusing on living an aligned life and how we can find purpose through our values. I love this topic and I'm so excited to take you through some exercises. So, in this video, in our time today, we are going to be covering what actually happens when we don't create values. Why is it so important that we identify values for our life? We're going to be taking you through, I'm going to be taking you through steps on how you can actually identify your values for your life and how you can revisit them. And then we're going to talk about how you actually integrate your values, right? If you work in a company, we know what it's like to see values on a wall, and maybe those values aren't necessarily integrated into the behavior. So I'm going to take you through some exercises that you can do for yourself personally so that you can actually put some behaviors to your values. And then, my friend, we are going to be talking about purpose, why it's important, and how that will start to present itself as we are living in our values. So let's get started. Okay, let's answer this question. Why is it so important that I actually have to have values? Because I know a lot of people in my life and they can't tell me what the values are for their life. I get it. I totally get it. And the reason why we want to create values for our life is, here's the thing, we got one ride. We've got one ride on this rock that's hurling itself through space, right? And we want to make the most of it. We want to live a really brilliant, amazing life. And we want to live that life that's in alignment for us. Now, your life is probably going to look very different than your friends or someone else in your world. And what often happens is we sometimes start to live a life based on someone else's values or what we think we should be doing. And I like to think of our life as, this really awesome road trip, right? We can plan out a road trip and it can either be really super fun, it's got stops, we're seeing new sights, we're experiencing new things, it feels easy and flowy. Or we can be on a road trip that feels super long. You forgot to pack the snacks. You're driving all night. It's just not fun and it doesn't feel good. Well, we want to feel good on this road trip of life. And the reality is, when it comes to our life, we have 3 resources that we are utilizing every single day, and that is our money, our time, and our energy. And when we don't identify our values, what often happens is we start to spend our money and our time and our energy either not present, like we're just spending it and not paying attention to it, or we're spending it in alignment with how everyone else is doing it. And what can happen, and maybe you've already experienced this, is sometimes we have this moment where we wake up and we're like, what am I doing? Like, I don't really like this career. And oh my gosh, half my life has gone by and I'm not doing the things that I want to do. So it's almost like, we're given this road trip and sometimes we just hop on a bus and we have no idea where it's taking us because we're like, this is our life. We're just supposed to get on the bus. And so you get on the bus, right? Well, we want to be really intentional about that. We want to have an idea of where we want to go, and we want to start getting on the right buses, right? We want to be able to map out that road trip in a way that really works for us. So this is why it's super important for us to identify our values. And another benefit of identifying your values is you're going to start to experience a lot of joy. And you will naturally experience less stress. And here's why. When you know what's important for you in your life and you start to live in alignment with that. And when I say live in alignment, what I'm also saying is you start spending your resources in alignment with your values, your money, your time, and your energy. Things start to feel different. We hold a lot of stress around how much time we have, about not having enough energy, about not feeling like we have enough money. We feel a lot of stress around that in our lives. And if we don't identify the values for our life, that stress is just going to continue. But if we know what's valuable to us, how we want to be spending our time and our energy and our money, then it starts to feel a lot different. So, my friend, we want to live an intentional life. We want to live a life that feels really good, that feels fulfilling, that feels joyful. You get to decide on all the ways you want to describe your amazing life. And in order to do that, it is imperative that we identify what's valuable to us. So let's get started on actually identifying what those values are for your life. Okay, where do you start, right? When we talk about creating values for your life, where the heck do I start? So I have provided in your worksheet, if you download that, there is a list of values, and you can also Google values list, and you're going to come up with a lot of amazing resources, but this is a really great place for you to start. What we're working for here is we want to identify 3 to 5 that really resonate with us, right? Now, you're going to see this big list, and that's probably going to feel a little overwhelming because there are going to be a lot of things that resonate for you. If you're like me, right? It was really hard for me to get down to a list of 3 to 5. But I want you to understand a few things. Number one, this list can always shift and change. It's not static. Just because you decide on it today, this is who you are, doesn't mean that it's going to resonate with you in a year, right? So this is an instance where I want you to identify your values, and I also want you to be diligent about going back to check to see if they still resonate for you. That's really important, okay? So here's how we're going to break this down. You have your list, and you're just going to start marking out the values that just like don't resonate. You're probably going to see some that just like, it's going to be an immediate no, right? So go ahead and do your first pass. That's step one of just kind of marking out the things that you know just don't really resonate. And then I want you to start identifying, grouping the ones. So maybe you can identify a different symbol. So circle, maybe there are ones that are all around wellness, and circle those that are resonating for you. And continue to add a different symbol for different groups, or you can also put it on a different piece of paper. What I'm wanting you to do here is see, number one, it does a couple things. Number one, it shows you're placing a lot of importance around this type of value, right? And number two, it helps you start to look at the group and then identify what's the hierarchy of it. What's the one that all of these other ones kind of roll up to? And so that is going to help you identify the 3 to 5 that really resonate with you, right? So as you're going through, give each grouping a different symbol or a different color, whatever resonates for you, and then you're going to start to see the themes. And then, my friend, as you are going through this is my one piece of, I guess, a warning that I could give you. Please, beautiful soul, I want you to do this exercise in true honesty. Now, what I mean by that, often when we do these things, like a values exercise, or if someone asks, what's important to you? We are so programmed to just give an answer that we think someone else wants to hear. And we can often do that with our values. Like maybe there's a value of feeling successful or accomplished. And we may feel bad about that because we don't want people to judge us. I want you to just be super honest with yourself. Just because you have a certain value doesn't mean that every other value on that list falls off and you just like don't care about it, okay? So I want you to be really honest with yourself, because if we're choosing values that don't resonate, guess what? You're probably not going to live in alignment with them. And so it's going to go against everything we're trying to do right now, which is to help give you some filters to live your life that feels really aligned for you. So that's my word of advice for you. We all do it. Trust me, it's super hard. But I want you to pick the things that really resonate for you. So let's recap. You're going to start with this list. You're going to cross out the ones that just like do not resonate for you. And then you're going to start identifying groups, whether it's wellness or career, whatever that feels for you. Start to identify the words that are actually all kind of in the same ballpark, in the same group. And then from there, really start working down to say, what, like at the end of the day, this is really the word that resonates with me around wellness. Maybe it's actually the word wellness. And getting yourself to 3 to 5 values. Okay. So now you have your 3 to 5 values, or maybe you haven't done the exercise yet, and that's okay. Now we have to talk about integrating the values into your life. Now, I say this to my students all the time when they're creating a budget. We can put numbers on a paper, but those numbers are actually you committing to a new behavior and habit. And so if we don't actually understand how to do that, then you're not going to stick to the number, right? And it's the same when it comes to our values. We can say these are valuable to us, but if we don't actually know and understand how to put those into a behavior, how to actually step into it, we're probably not going to be living in the values, right? And so for each of your values, I want you to identify a couple of things. Number one, I want you to start with a list that is saying, this is how I see embodying this value. This is what I would be doing when I'm living in this value. So let's just say travel is one of your values. You get to say, I'm going on weekend trips. I'm taking a big trip every year. Identify what the behaviors are for you, okay, when you're in alignment with that value. And then on the flip side, I want you to make a list. And again, you can use the worksheet for this if provided space for you. On the flip side of that, I want you to actually create a list of when I'm not in alignment, this is what the behavior looks like. So that you start to get a very clear picture of when you're in alignment with that value and when you're not. Now, travel is an easy one, right? But I want you to, this is going to be super helpful when you're looking at things like joy. Okay, what does joy actually mean every day in your life? The secret beauty in this exercise is that you actually get to identify a lot of moments. Let's just say joy is the thing we're talking about. You're going to identify a lot of little moments in your daily life that feel joyful, that bring you joy. And I am all about the gratitude, my friend. I know it gets a bad rap sometimes, but gratitude is so, so powerful and so important for just our mindset and our health, right? To recognize how many amazing things we have in our life. So I want you to go through each of your values and identify what is the behavior? What am I thinking? How am I feeling? Go through each of those, download the worksheet, it'll guide you when I'm in alignment with this value, and then do the same thing for when you're not in alignment with that value. Because then at the end of the week, at the end of the month, you get to go back and check in to say, how does this feel? Am I in alignment with this value? Because what I want you to do, we have to go back and actually check in to see if it feels good. Because sometimes we might pick a value and maybe it's not resonating with us. But we won't know that unless we go back, right? So at the end of each week, I want you to have a reflection moment where you're like, how aligned was I with my values this week? And did that feel good? And if there's a value that keeps popping up that you don't seem to be embodying, then it's time for us to actually revisit that and decide, is that the right value? Is that the thing that's important to me? Because maybe it's not. And there's no right or wrong, right? This is you. This is you guiding what feels really good for your life. Bonus, you're going to do these for yourself. And then bonus, if you're with a partner or you live with a partner or you want to do this as a family, identifying your values as a family is also super, super powerful. Okay, let's talk about purpose. How are we finding our purpose by living our values? Now, purpose can be this really squishy thing, right? Sometimes we think it's about our career. Sometimes we think it's about our soul. Like, it totally just depends on you and the human. But I like to think of purpose as it's the why you get up in the morning, right? And maybe your sole purpose is to bring joy to others. Maybe your sole purpose is to be a really great parent. There's no right or wrong answer to this. And the reason why we want to start with our values first, instead of like, this is my purpose, back into it, is because often when we're trying to identify a purpose, we are identifying it through a lens of a lot of conditioning that we've been living in our lives, right? And so when it comes to identifying like the vision for your life, this is what I found in my coaching practice, is that that's actually really hard for individuals to do, because so often we just start living this life according to everyone else or according to what we think we should be doing. And we haven't taken a lot of time to actually pause and say, what do I want? And when we do that sometimes, we immediately put a block that says, there's no way I could do that. Like, there's no way that's the kind of life I could live. But we don't know that, right? We're just so conditioned to kind of living the life we're living and having this thought process that says, well, it is what it is, right? You've probably heard that a lot in your life. And I don't believe that. I'm like, it is what I want it to be. And that's the kind of life I'm going to live. But that can't just happen just by claiming it. We actually have to take action towards those things. So the reason why I think it's so important to identify your values first and then start living in alignment with those values, embodying those values, then your purpose is going to start to bubble up. Because like I said, maybe you have a couple values on there that aren't resonating, but you're going to start to see a bigger purpose for you in your life. And it doesn't have to be to cure cancer. It doesn't have to be to like have this huge success or be a millionaire or multimillionaire. It doesn't have to be any of those things, right? So when we're talking about purpose and your vision for your life, permission for it to be whatever feels good to you. Whatever feels good to you. And so one of the ways that I started to step into my purpose or really start to feel into it is it's not necessarily just about life coaching and money coaching, but I recognize as I think back through my life, what has lit me up, what has gotten me really excited. And then I think back through, what do people always come to me to? Like, you know, my friends are coming to me for advice or thoughts. How am I always stepping into that? What am I stepping into, like in my career? What are the things I naturally gravitated towards? And I started to identify very clear things that helped me really step into my purpose. It helped me identify, oh, this is the thing I'm really supposed to be doing here in this moment in time, right? And so things I started to identify were, I love being on stage. I love speaking and feeling that energy from a lot of individuals, right? You could say being on the camera is like being on stage. I love the idea of building things. I like creating calm and structure to things that can feel chaotic to a lot of individuals. And I like to inspire, right? And so as I started to step into these things, I know people came to me around their money, their time, and their energy. I naturally just started to step into it. Now, your purpose isn't necessarily going to be your career, right? And so when I think about my purpose, it's not necessarily tied to what I do in my career, but I always think of my purpose as I want to be an example for someone to be inspired to continue to better their life. And I can do that in so many different ways, in so many areas of my life. It doesn't just have to be in my career. And so I don't want you to overthink purpose or just kind of like, this is my purpose and like push into it. I want you to like start identifying your values and just be very soft with it and very curious. Okay. Now, curiosity, my friend, in this whole process, in your life in general, is going to be one of the biggest tools that you will have for yourself, because when we can be curious, we will immediately step into a space of non-judgment. We will open our brain to actually wanting to explore a solution. And you might be surprised at what you find. Friend, thank you so much for watching this video today. I'm so excited for you to go through these exercises, so download that worksheet. And I'm so excited for you to start to feel the difference when you live a really intentional life, when you start to live a life aligned with values. Because what happens is we're no longer in this space where we're just floating around. You're going to start to feel really grounded. You're going to start to feel really purpose driven simply because you are living with intention. I'll see you soon.